I was buying a last-minute flight. I had to tell my wife and my daughter, like, hey, I'm gonna be gone for a week. I'm out of here. So, it was really cool that the agents were able to do that, and there was definitely some communication on our end. But it was probably 24-hour turnaround in our ability to get the suite again and get all the products out there, and so credit to our operations team.
Yeah. Getting a hotel room in Indy like that in last minute, nevertheless, a bunch of them. And a
suite,
kudos
like,
to the
we have
staff. Good job.
We,
Shout out to them.
Yeah.
We got the whole ballroom set up.
Did you guys still get the basement in the Omni?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We may have been there a time or two.
Yeah, that basement set up in the Omni is probably better than most gyms in America.
Welcome into the Train with the Best podcast. I'm Craig Hoffman.
Chris Gorres.
And if you're watching on YouTube, you see, got a different background. Down in South Carolina at my parents' house, was able to surprise my grandmother for her 85th birthday, Chris. You should have seen the look on Muriel's face.
Happy birthday. Wow.
Yeah. Happy birthday to Mem. Yeah, that was great. Rachel and I were just sitting at the table at the restaurant, and she walks in. It's this big, long hallway. She's got to, like, round a corner. All of a sudden, she gets back to the table, and she just stops, and she's like,
oh, that's a good moment.
It was great. It was fantastic.
Those are core memories.
Yeah, so we came down on Wednesdays. We're recording this. It's Friday, which the other thing, this is the podcast episode for next week, if you will. But our guest today is Nic Hill, who heads up the combine training as a speed coach out at EXOS in Phoenix, Arizona. And we just wanted to get that out quickly. So instead of the pod dropping on Monday, we're just going to drop it today. That way it can be out, and everybody who's watched the first round of the draft and is watching the NFL draft over the weekend can have some background as they're watching from our interview with Nic. But Chris, I mean, for me, last night, as we're recording this again Friday afternoon, I was on the air till 11 o'clock last night doing the draft. It's always so exciting, watching all the hugs, and it's so funny too with kind of Goodell's reputation over the years. And I remember the first year he did the draft, and everyone's like, "Who's this dude out there giving all these big old hugs?" But you realize that for all the business side of it and all this other stuff that he's got to deal with, at the end of the day, that hug is really more about the guy giving it than the guy getting it, and it is this culmination of. At that point, yes, they're young, they're kids. They've only been on Earth for 22 years, but 22 years of work in a lot of cases, right? Like they've been playing football since they were 4 years old. Put in a ton of work in college at these big programs, big and small programs, and they get to see a dream come true that so many of us think about as kids of being a professional athlete, and in that moment, it gets realized.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that draft night, you see all the families, not just for the players, but like all the work and the sacrifices that the families have made, and how big of a moment that is for the Hutchinson family, or you saw, I think it was the Pickett family, the kid that got drafted into Pittsburgh. You saw how much that moment meant to them. So it's a really cool night, and it is. It's that moment that you realize that you're an NFL player, or you've been selected to be an NFL player. That's a pretty surreal moment. I never had that. I never had that moment. So but I can only imagine how much that would mean to not just me, but to everybody in my family and my friends.
Did you have a signing day for when you went to Cornell, or are you committed to Cornell?
Yeah, we did. I think there's a picture of it. I have a picture of it.
Somewhere. If you can find it quickly, then it'll be magically appearing over the video right now on YouTube.
I'll send it to you. I have it saved on my phone for sure.
Okay, well then send that up, and I'll pop it up as some B-roll. But so if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever, like go check the time code, go to YouTube, and get yourself a picture of young Chris Gorres signing with Cornell. What do you remember from that? Like, what do you remember from the day though? And not only that, but like I guess obviously the big difference is like for a draft. They pick you. For you picked them.
Yeah. I think the recruiting process is a little bit different because it's still like it's still your decision, right? Like you're like in the draft, you're sitting there waiting on like who's going to decide on you, versus like when you're recruited, you have a few different options that are set on the table for you, and then you pick one. But yeah, signing day was pretty cool. I had the privilege of signing with a couple of good friends of mine. By the name of Todd Newell and Patrick Dial, who also went to Cornell, and we all went together. So that was a pretty good day for, again, not just me, but for our families to know that we were going to a great school, we were going to a good football program that wanted us to be there, and we were going to get to go as a group of friends that could be there for each other, not just for like rides and stuff, but like for the companionship, for the fellowship, and going through some pretty transformative years. So it was a cool day. I think there was also a little bit of relief that the whole process was over, right? Like, so you can be like, all right, I'm choosing this school. This is where I'm going to go. And I don't need to worry about this stuff anymore. But yeah, I'm going to find that picture and send it to you guys. But I know my mom and dad they were really, really happy about the decisions that I had made, that I was picking a school, not just a football team. So
yeah, definitely. Anything from that to you sticks out from the training side of it? I mean, we just, in full transparency, like we talked to Nic 5 minutes ago, and that you guys are hearing this out of order, so that's the beauty of a podcast. But like, we had the conversation with Nic about some of the things that have stayed the same over the years and some of the things that have changed, and people can stay tuned and obviously hear his answer. But what to you is most interesting about the changes or the similarities with combine training? I mean, because you've done it, not necessarily like you have done NFL combine training,
right?
But you've also done, whether it's like soccer showcases or whether it's whatever other sports and their version of a combine or testing I don't know, event. What to you is like unique about the NFL combine, and what are some of the things that are similar across sports, across levels?
All right. So one of the things that when we were out there and I was watching the guys kind of get after with the things that they were getting after, it's a unique perspective for me because, again, I've done this for a while now. I've been there for a number of different combine training groups, and I see it a little bit differently every single time. But it was interesting to me because they were particularly doing like a set of exercises. I won't say which ones, but they were doing it exactly the same way that Dennis was doing it years ago. Exactly the same way. Like the same cues, the same setup, the same exercise, the same tempo, everything was exactly the same way Dennis Logan did it, however many years ago that was. So it was interesting to see that, hey, like this hasn't changed. And I think it's kind of cool when you get to hear Nic talk about it. He talks about how, look, we've been in this game for 20 years, and we've had some of the best and brightest minds on this, whether it be at Arizona or across the different locations at EXOS. And over 20 years, the different coaches that have been in and around this program, right? Like, there's certain things that we just don't mess with. Like, we know what to do. We know how much of this we need. And I think across all sports, as a coach, in any program, what you have to do is you have to manage what you know is going to work, the formula that you know is proven, versus the formula that everybody thinks will work. Because you're gonna get a college kid that thinks they should be lifting more. You're gonna get a college kid that thinks that they should be running more. You're gonna get kids that think that, oh, I need to be doing this to get myself ready. When you're like, no, just trust me, listen to what I'm saying, do it the way that we're telling you to do it. Chill out. Don't worry about the times right now. That's a big one, right? Because everybody's worried about their times that they're going to run in the 40. And 2-3 weeks before the 40, or 2-3 weeks before the combine, they're going to run a slow time because, like, we've loaded you up. We haven't even started tapering you off yet. So don't expect to run a fast time today. And they're freaking out because, like, holy shit, the combine is 2-3 weeks away. Right. I'm not near the time where I'm supposed to be. And
I'm
the
supposed to be running 4.4 and I'm running 4.6. Like, what are we doing?
Right. So, and you as a coach know internally that, like, yeah, don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. But you've got to be able to communicate that effectively to the kids because they're freaking out. Or, if you're doing it the right way, then you're educating them to say, I did actually hear, I think it was Nic, and I overheard him and said, hey, listen, don't expect fast time today. So we're gonna run the time so that you guys can start to see, because we're gonna start tracking this going into the next couple of weeks up until Indianapolis. So when you run your times today, don't freak out if it's not what where it's supposed to be, because this is actually where you're at in this stage of training. And we don't expect you to run fast, but it's going to get better and better as you get closer to the date. And I actually heard him say that to the athletes. So it's interesting the way that you know what works, but you have to communicate that it's going to work to the people who don't know that.
And that's coaching, though. Like, setting expectations is part of coaching, right? It's
Right.
like, hey, this is how this is going to go. And that way it feels comfortable when you get there, and people are more bought into the process, because even though the time is not what they want it to be, then you told them that ahead of time. So they're like, that builds trust, because what you said was going to happen happened. I think the other thing, too, about the NFL Combine that's super unique compared to basically everything but the NBA Combine is the interview sessions and like all this other stuff. And the fact that it's part of this big giant show. Like, you can watch it on television, at least the events part of it. And there's the production element of it all that a place like EXOS now at this point has so much experience preparing them for. And obviously they're not the only ones. There's some of our other friends who do a great job, and some people that we don't know in the industry that do a great job. We love to talk to them too, but we've had this great relationship with EXOS, especially with the stuff that we've done with them over the past couple of months. And they are, that relationship or not, the best at it year after year after year, because they built this system and this infrastructure to not only help people run faster, lift heavier, whatever, but they bring in, psychology experts and things like that to help with the interviews. And they have been there enough to have the institutional knowledge of what the interviews could be like, what the medicals are going to be like, and all these other things that happen. And again, that just goes to like that trust of setting expectations and then having what you say is going to happen, that especially for college kids who are going through this, the one and only time they will ever go through this in their lives, with no frame of reference of anything similar to it otherwise, their first taste of being a professional as well, where like, no, you don't have to go to class. No, you don't have study hall. No, you don't have this. Like, this is your job to come to this session, to go to that session and run, to eat properly, to attend this mentorship, to do whatever it is. Like, this is now your job. Your agent paid a lot of money for you to be here. And I think that is something that's super unique about that process. But on the other side of that coin too is where I start the interview with Nic is then you get done with the combine and you get done and you get drafted and now you're a rookie.
Right.
And that's an interesting switch to flip too, is so people understand, like, mini camps are open. Like, they were open phase one. Guys were in the facilities. The veterans were in the facilities last week doing stuff with their strength and conditioning coaches, and then in the classroom with their position coaches. They can't meet with anybody and they can't do team drills and stuff yet. But that stuff starts like next week or 2 weeks, depending on the team. And so you go from like drafted to, and even before that, rookie mini camp really quick. Like, you go from maybe the highest moment of your life getting drafted to being a rookie in the NFL really, really quickly, like literally instantaneously. And how you handle that, I think, is a fascinating part of the journey for so many guys as well.
Yeah, and I think Nic kind of touches on it, and we were kind of pressed for time with Nic, so we couldn't dive into this, but I think this is a really big thing that is part of EXOS's. I don't know how to say that.
Yeah.
I think this is
EXOS's. I think that's right. It can be possessive.
Yeah. Okay.
A part of the EXOS process.
This is a part of what makes EXOS special. Is
there you go.
You take a college kid. What is underestimated is how much their schedule is already made up for them, right? So when you go to the University of Alabama, when you're at Penn State like Jahan Dotson was, your day is defined for you. You're going to wake up at this time. You're going to be at film. You're going to be at lift. You're going to be at class. You're going to be at practice. You're going to be at treatment. This is it. Then you're going to go eat dinner, and then you're going to go sleep. Like, your whole day is planned out for you. When you get to the pros, you have minicamp, and now you have all the time and money in the world to get into trouble, right? So I think that EXOS does a great job being the transition and educating their players about, hey, this is how to spend your time. There's no such thing as empty space. It's either going to be filled with positivity or negativity. And what you're doing in that time, how you're eating, how you are taking care of your body, the way that you approach your schedule, like, that's all a good transition from a kid coming from college going to EXOS. And then ultimately, once you get drafted by your team, again, there is just so much time in the day and so much money that you have to play with, and there's so many opportunities to distract yourself or get into trouble. And I think that's another part of the formula that EXOS gives that helps not just their group be successful, but the athletes that come through there, help them be successful.
What's funny is the next time they'll go through that process is when they retire. Magic Johnson talks about this. I don't know if you watched They Call Me Magic, the new 4-part documentary on Apple TV Plus. It's so good. Really fantastic job. And really a nice pairing with Winning Time on HBO, which is like a clear, gigantic dramatization of the 1980s Lakers, and to get like more of a reality. And obviously, look, Magic was heavily involved in this documentary, so there are certain things that are touched on more than others, and whatever. But I mean, they do a good job of being really fair and getting into some stuff that was uncomfortable for him to talk about, and all that kind of stuff. And but he talks about at the end of that, like when he retired. And this is part of the reason why he struggled so much and why he retired back again in 1996. You know, he obviously had to retire after he acquired the HIV virus and tested positive for that in 91. And then when he was cleared to play again, came back and then didn't. But that 96 retirement was basically like he still had the competitive fire and couldn't figure out a way to fill it. And so when he retired again midway through that season, he's like, I got to find some way to channel my energy. I have to find some structure. And so as he starts Magic Johnson Enterprises, one of the steps that he takes is getting himself an office. Like he could have run that out of his house on some level, but he's like, no, I want an office because I want to have to get up and I want to have to go to the office every day. And that kind of thing, especially now where, I mean, these kids have come of age in the pandemic over the last 2 years where nobody left their house for anything. And so the idea of how to build structure and having a place to go that's part of your habits at a place like EXOS is obviously a huge coup. And can they then take those skills and recreate that on their own time is going to be part of what makes an athlete successful. Obviously, there's so much that goes into being great at the NFL level. All right, when we get back here on the Train with the Best podcast, let's talk to Nic Hill from EXOS about all of this and more. And if you're tuning in because you saw my tweet like, hey, Commanders fans, check out this pod, we definitely talked to him about Jahan Dotson. He's got some great stuff to say about the Commanders' first-round pick who trained with him out in Phoenix. That's coming up next on the Train with the Best podcast. The Train with the Best podcast is brought to you by Super Coffee, and it's not often that I am like really genuinely excited, like kind of can't wait level excited to do an ad, but I have gotten the order in and have plowed my way through a box of this new tasty pastry collection from Super Coffee. I cannot believe how good it is because I just can't believe that they created these flavors. If you're going, what are you talking about? Maybe you're new to the podcast. Super Coffee, who we've been with for like 4 years, have launched a ton of great products over the years, from their super espressos to their grounds to their K-Cups. Everything they've put out has been great, but never have they been this audacious in a flavor. And then they did it times 3. They created a blueberry muffin, a cinnamon bun, and a caramel waffle, and they called it the Tasty Pastry Collection. And if you took a blueberry muffin, like an actual muffin, and dipped it in coffee and put it in your mouth, and then somehow made it into liquid form, that's what the blueberry muffin tastes like. Same thing for a cinnamon bun. Dip it in coffee, put it in your mouth. Like, it's insane. I don't know how Jordan, Jake, and Jimmy did it. The Chico boys who founded Super Coffee and have continued to run it to amazing success all these years. It's just unbelievably good. So go to drinksupercoffee.com, use the code TRAINWITHTHEBEST, get your 25% off your order, and enjoy. That's it. That's the ad. The coffee's ridiculous. Go enjoy it. Drinksupercoffee.com. The code is TRAINWITHTHEBEST. The Train with the Best podcast is brought to you by Jakku, and man, we put out some great content this week. Really, I say we. It was Chris. I hit a couple of buttons to make sure that we shared it properly on the Train with the Best 21 Instagram account, but it's the Jakku 1K. Here's what you do. 4 sprints. Try to get a little faster each time. And of course, you're timing this on your Jakku training device, which is going to be more accurate than a stopwatch, more accurate than those fancy laser timing systems even, and at a humongous discount compared to those fancy laser timing systems. You do 4 sprints, then you do 4 with the Jakku wind shoot, and then you do 2 more all out. 10 sprints. By the end, you're toast, but you've also gotten faster, and that's really kind of the point. You measure yourself so that you can have accurate readings on where you are in your speed training. So make sure that those readings are actually accurate. Go to jakku.com/discount/TWTB for 20% off. It's jakku.com/discount/TWTB. Follow them on Instagram at JakkuSpeed, and make sure you're following us at TrainWithTheBest21. Our guest today on the Train with the Best podcast is a performance coach at EXOS, heads up their combine training out in Phoenix, Arizona. Got to see him work a little bit from afar as we were doing our thing out at EXOS a couple months ago. It's Nic Hill. Nic, appreciate the time, man. I know this is a crazy, fun time of year for you, but also super busy. What was it like getting to watch some of your guys last night?
It's always fun, watching the guys kind of the hard work all kind of pay off. And, that's the end of the yellow brick road right there, or the start of a new journey for them. And you see them go through their college career, and we follow a lot of these guys. And I'm just a fan of football, so I'm watching guys play in college. And then we get to have them out here for combine for 12, 10, 8 weeks, kind of depending on how long they or when they come in. And then go through the combine process with them in pro day, and then you see this big moment at the end of when they get drafted and get to walk up on that stage.
No doubt. And the thing with combine, though, training and this training is, like, you work so hard for that date in February, and then obviously the pro days that follow, but, like, this is the start. They got drafted. And I've always been curious with talking to guys, that do what you do, how much are you trying to prepare them for these events during combine training and like, be a good combine athlete versus getting them ready to be NFL football players, because now they get drafted, that page turns, and they're rookies all of a sudden?
From a training process, everything is preparing them for the combine. They have tests that they need to get ready for, and that's what the focus is at that moment, because that's what's going to help build their draft stock. And we try to determine that from when they come in. What do we need to get better at to build your draft stock? Not just can we get everybody to run the fastest 40 or bench the most reps or whatever it is. It's what is going to be specific to you to help you jump up that board. I think from an NFL standpoint and from a longevity career standpoint, we're trying to teach them habits. We're trying to instill discipline and make sure that they know that the college life, the high school life where you have somebody on you and telling you what to do, that's over. So the longevity of your career is going to depend on how you approach the next 10 years and how you take care of your body, how disciplined you are with what you're putting in your body. We have our dietitians on staff and our physical therapists right there on the floor. So most of these guys know the training side, and there is some intricacy there, teaching them how to sprint, turning them into track athletes, if you want to say that. But really a lot of what they learn is the nutrition side, the knowledge that they get from our dietitian, understanding that physical therapy is not just reactive, that it's very proactive, and making sure that you're staying on top of taking care of your body so that you can last 17 plus games in the NFL versus a much shorter high school and college season.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about that balance between not just the stuff that they're doing with you, but then you mentioned nutrition, you mentioned physical therapy, and then I know that EXOS brings in other guys like a Lorenzo Alexander to work with the linebackers, and you have a wide receivers coach to work with wide receivers. What's the priority when guys are coming in? Like, what takes priority and says, hey, they absolutely have to do this today, and then if we can fit in a lift or if we can fit in skills work, we'll do that. So what takes priority?
So we've been doing this for 20 plus years of kind of building out this program. So we have I hate to say secret sauce or anything like that.
Right.
We're very open about what we do, but we know kind of the formula of how much speed work we need, how much linear speed work, how much multi-direction, how much lifting, lower body, upper body, position work, all of that. So that's already built out in the program. We're training 6 days a week. 5 weeks of the 8-week program, they're doing 3 days of position work, skill work. And each one of those is about an hour, hour and a half. One of those 3 days is going to be film work, where they're just on the board, they're watching film, they're doing review and breakdown. And then they're doing 3 to 4, depending on the week, linear speed sessions where we're just focusing on their 40. That's the big test. And then 1 to 2 multi-direction sessions. And inside of that, there's lower body lifts during the week. They're lifting every day. There's upper body, depending on the week. So the way we have the program built out is really set up to maximize the potential of the athlete so that they're prepared and peaking at the right moment. We're treating this like an event, not necessarily a season preparation. Right. NFL vet is completely different. We're preparing them for a long season. NFL Combine is we're preparing you for 1 day for a very specific set of testing, and we want you to peak for that event. So all of that is kind of built out prior, and then we individualize the program as we get our guys in and put them through testing. We'll put them through all of our sports science stuff, force decks. We'll put them through a number of tests, from NordBoard to force frame to running our first 40, and then we'll build out a specific program for each guy.
The evolution of the combine process and the scouting process over the last 20 years is fascinating from a football standpoint. It's fascinating from this side, from the training side of it. And as you mentioned, you guys have been doing this for so long, and this becomes very personalized. So I'm curious to you, what have been some of the big changes that have happened in your time doing it? Because, everyone talks about the 40. It's super sexy, but we know at certain positions especially, they're way more interested in the 10-yard split, or they might not care about the 40 at all, and it's all about the 20-yard shuttle. And so as what teams are looking for has changed, and you guys have been able to have conversations with teams and agents and players over the years of what translates and what scouts are looking for, what has been to you some of the bigger changes that have happened in your time doing this?
I think the biggest one was the COVID year. I mean, that one was where it threw everything into a loop. Our training program had to be revisited, just from trying to make sure that guys weren't mixing in groups, and there was COVID protocols, so we had to revisit the entire program. That was also the year that they canceled the combine in Indianapolis, so everybody ran at Pro Day. And I think what that did was put a little bit more emphasis on what guys are doing at Pro Day, and understanding that maybe you don't need to do everything in Indianapolis, and that's, again, we can be more specific to each guy and say, the bench press is a perfect example. So this year they took the bench press and they put it on the same day as the 40. And I'm not going to allow any of my athletes to go out there and bench press 20 reps of 225 if they're anywhere under a 4.9. So, because you're just going to fry your nervous system. And then what is really the big hitter, the bench press or the 40? So we had, 130 guys across the facility. Every facility, we had 54 guys at our facility, and maybe 3 of them benched, 2 of them bench pressed. And those guys weren't running 40s because they had something going on. So that was a good example of, we've started to look at it as we can split this into a 2-day or a 2-event type of a process and really individualize it for each athlete. So COVID switched that up. COVID put more emphasis on what we're doing at Pro Day, and allowed us to focus more on what we're going to do in Indy versus what we're going to do at Pro Day.
So the reverse of the things that have changed over the years since you've got there, what are the things that are maybe the same over the past 20 years? Like, what are the things that Dennis Logan and Nick Winkelman did that Nic Hill still does? Yeah,
I mean, the kind of the heritage of this company and what we've done over the last 20 plus years, and the coaches, the amazing coaches that have come through this facility. And I take it just as an honor to be able to kind of step into that role that Nick Winkelman was in. I mean, at one point, Mark Verstegen was running this program. And it's something that we understand and we take a lot of pride in as a company across all facilities. And I'm a younger coach. I've been doing this now in this program for 6 years. But it's just crazy to look back and think about those legends and like those very elite guys, and you think of yourself as being in that spot. And I mean, I don't look at myself that way as a GOAT or a legend or whatever you want to call it. I just kind of see myself as wanting to get these guys better. And what they did before us laid the foundation, and I think we continue to evolve the program and look at it with a different set of eyes and a different lens, and put my own style on it and put my own little tweaks into it. But they built the foundation for years and years, and so you're just trying to kind of carry on that legacy.
How scary is that when you look at something and you're like, I think we might want to change this, but I know that Dennis or Mark, put that in place. Like, what are those conversations like, in both internally in your own head and with your team there at EXOS?
I mean, I think you just kind of have to trust who you are as a coach and know that, what you're doing is what you think is best for that athlete. And then the other great part is we have 4 other amazing speed coaches across our facilities that you can bounce ideas off of. Roy Holmes, I can call Brent Calloway or Anthony Hobgood, and we get on calls regularly and just kind of troubleshoot things. Or, if I have a guy that I'm having trouble with, I'll go hit one of them up and say, hey, this is the issue. What would you do? Or do you have any guys like this? And so to have those resources, yes, it's me and I'm the speed coach in Arizona, but really these athletes that train here have 3-4 other speed coaches that they're getting coached from, because we're all using each other as resources. So it gives you more confidence doing it. But at the end of the day, I think, those prior coaches also look into this program and say, we trust those coaches to continue the legacy as well. So.
Right.
The Train with the Best podcast is brought to you by Momentous. Momentous is a performance nutrition company whose products optimize your active life. It's trusted by over 150 pro and collegiate sports teams, individual athletes to, again, the team sports, to folks like us are using Momentous each and every day to not only perform better, but to feel better. Whether it's their line of vitamins, like their multivitamin, vitamin D, magnesium, all those kinds of supplements, to their creatines and their collagen supplements, to recovery products such as their protein, and of course the ultimate recovery product, Elite Sleep. Get more out of your sleep. Momentous has you covered in each and every facet of your athletic endeavors. Whether it's to optimize, perform, or recover, Momentous is your one-stop shop for everything you need to supplement your daily diet. So how do you get all these magical products? Very easy. You go to livemomentous.com, use the code TRAINWITHTHEBEST25. Livemomentous.com, TRAINWITHTHEBEST25, or click the link in the episode description, and you can get 25% off your first order. It works with the subscription orders, so you go 25% off, then 15% off all the refills, so it is a long-term savings on these premium products. Go check them out. livemomentous.com. The code is TRAINWITHTHEBEST25. Train with the Best podcast is brought to you by BlazePod. At blazepod.com, use the code TWTB. You get 15% off. The best reactive training system on the market. We only work with the best. That's why we're called Train with the Best. You think we just made up that title for funsies? Oh, hey, look at us. We're the best. No. It's not about us. It's about all of our team. And our team now includes BlazePod. Get 6 lights per set. Set them up in whatever shape that you think is best suited for your drill. You set up number of colors. It could just be a single color. It could be on the hit. It could be on a timed interval. Whatever it is that works for your drill is a completely customizable reactive training system that you as a coach can use to make sure that your athletes are primed to make the best decisions possible when they hit the court, when they hit the field, when they hit whatever other playing surface that they go out and play on. I don't know. Maybe we got a bunch of water polo coaches listening all of a sudden. Do you want your water poloers making good decisions? You sure do there in the water. So train them with BlazePod. Go to blazepod.com. Use the code TWTB. It's 15% off. blazepod.com, TWTB. One of the interesting kind of subplots of the Combine this year was some of the changes that were made, access, and especially for a place like EXOS that has all the nutritionists and has the PTs and has someone like you as a coach who would go to Indianapolis and be on site, help warm guys up, and all of a sudden the league was like, we don't know about that anymore. And the agents kind of bubbled up and said, like, hey, that's not going to fly, and that changed real quick. And I'm curious from your seat, like how you saw some of that, and like how much conversation happens between a place like EXOS, a coach like you, and player agents throughout the year. Does the league ever reach out? The PA, like what's take us behind the scenes of how some of these things are set up to try to maximize things ultimately for the players, so they can do the things that they want to do and prove how good they are.
Yeah, I mean, EXOS is unique in that area because we travel to Indianapolis with our guys and basically bring a set-up shop gym, and we just, have everybody there, our physical therapists, coaches, anything that you need. And when we were told that they were going to take that away this year, we prepared our guys to go out there and handle it on their own. And we had those conversations early on and said, hey, look, it's very likely that we're not going to be there. We're not going to be allowed to be there. So you need to be prepared and coach each other up and, make sure that you're really on top of these little things and details And what they don't, players don't know what they don't know. So they don't
That's
know
true. Yeah.
what it was like to have support like past classes did. So they took it and they understand the objective and what they needed to do. And then at the last minute, the agents got together, and we have really good relationships with the agencies, obviously. And I'm communicating with agents weekly, if not daily, on certain guys. So, there's no surprises when they get to Indianapolis. We know what guys are going to run, how they're going to perform. And so those conversations were going on kind of behind the scenes of, is there a possibility that we're going to make a move to get us out there? And it all happened very last minute. I mean, the agents came together and different agencies came together, and it was amazing that they were able to get that done. And, credit to the EXOS team behind closed doors of being able to go after make sure that everything was set up and ready to go. Like, they hit Curve, they hit all of our suppliers, Normatech, and they're like, hey, can we have all this stuff out there in 24 hours? So there was like this huge turnaround from our operations staff, and the ability to have that suite set up for the guys, because it all happened 48 hours before the combine.
Yeah,
right.
And so I was buying a last minute flight. I had to tell my wife and my daughter, like, hey, I'm gonna be gone for a week. I'm out of here. So, it was really cool that the agents were able to do that, and there was definitely some communication on our end. But it was probably 24-hour turnaround in our ability to get the suite again and get all the products out there, and so credit to our operations team.
Yeah. Getting a hotel room in Indy like that in last minute, nevertheless, a bunch of them. That's
and a suite,
we have
the
good job. Shout out to them.
Yeah.
We got the whole ballroom set up.
Did you guys still get the basement in the Omni?
Yep.
Yeah.
We may have been there a time or two.
Yeah, that basement set up in the Omni is probably better than most gyms in America. So
it's pretty. It's a pretty good set. It's always good too, like when you see the guys and you could see the relief on the guys' faces.
100%.
When we told them we were going out there, I think they were prepared to go out and handle business. But when you can go out and support them and through that grind of the long interviews and up late and all that, medical staff, all that type of stuff, it's very helpful for them.
Now we're at this moment on draft day, right? So you see somebody like Travon Walker go number 1. Like, what's going through your gut when you're watching the draft last night and you're watching Goodell announce the first pick?
I mean, it's fun because there's the coach's couch and then there's the draft couch. And the coach's couch is the couch that we sit on in Indianapolis and watch the guys run. And that's when, your anxiety is through the roof and, you're super jacked up for the guys and you see them put their hand on the line and they rip out of there. And all of that work is kind of built into that one moment. The draft, there's so many different variables that go into play. You're just hoping that these guys get fit into the right spot and land in a good place and push themselves up the draft board a little bit. But it's not as kind of pressured as the couch is in Indianapolis as the combine is. But it's always fun. We get together as a company, and each facility, the whole group gets together and we watch the draft and watch these guys go. And it's always cool to see a guy jump up the board. Garrett Wilson went 10 overall, which is amazing. And when you started seeing receivers flying off the board, Jahan also jumped up, went 16 overall. So nobody knows how the draft is going to go. All the people that are predicting where the draft spots are going to be, you get the first 3 right, and then the rest is all over the place. So it's just fun to watch, the guys roll out and they got their suits and they're all tailored up, and it's just a different part of the process. Is a good time.
No doubt. I did want to ask about Jahan. I obviously doing radio as long as I have in DC, covering the Commanders for the last lots of years. Definitely have some people that'll check this out just to hear a little bit about Jahan. So can you give us a Jahan story or two, and for the Commanders fans that are going to check out this podcast, what kind of kid and what kind of player did the Commanders just draft at 16?
Jahan is a silent assassin, man. He was an amazing kid. He came in early, worked his butt off, very, very detailed and great work ethic, fun to be around. I mean, Han is my guy, man, and I'm super happy for him. And they got a dog. They got somebody that's going to go out there and work, and a major playmaker, phenomenal athlete, and I think could be a number one receiver out there for sure. So I'm super excited for him on where he landed. And I think, the Commander's got a great kid, a great character guy, and a good worker, somebody that's going to be good for the locker room. But he's a silent assassin, man. He would do he would come out and he would run his times, and he was one of our faster guys. Him and Garrett Wilson would go at each other. And he would just go last. All the guys go up and it's all gassed up and everybody's hyped up, and he just walks up last, takes his time, steps up to the line, puts his hand down in the dirt, and then rips off like one of the fastest times that we have in the class. And so it was always fun to just kind of have his energy, and that silent assassin about him was just fun to watch.
Yeah, tell him to attach on, or to just attach himself to McLaurin's hip. Sounds like it's cut from the same cloth. That's what Terry's like. Not very loud, but man, when he speaks, everybody listens. He's faster than hell. He works his ass off. Sounds very, very similar. That's awesome, man. I'm glad to hear it. Congrats on, I think EXOS had 13 in the first round last night. I don't know how many of those were. I'm sure you know how many of those were yours in Phoenix.
4 from Arizona. 13. 3 of the top 4 guys out of EXOS. So it was a big night for us.
Including one overall with Travon Walker out of Georgia. That's awesome, man. Next time we're down in Phoenix, which we'll definitely be back, we'll definitely come up and say hello. Hopefully, maybe Chris will time it next year where it's not quite as stressful, where Nick is not in the middle of combine training. I think we came like 2 weeks before the combine. We'll try to not do that next year. We'll pick a different time.
That's all good.
Go grab lunch or something.
Pop up whenever.
Appreciate you coming on the pod, man, and we'll definitely be in touch.
All right, boys. Thank you.
Thanks for checking out this video. If you like it, we got more. Make sure you subscribe right here on YouTube and check out our podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, or even our website. It's got everything there. All the links you could possibly want. Go check it out. Trainwiththebest21.com.